Humans can't handle when information goes against exactly what they know the universe to be. That's called cognitive dissonance, and it's become really apparent with the rise of misinformation and disinformation since August last year, and to lead to a point now where people are literally showing how fucking stupid and cruel they are in social media spaces. Research done recently into why people seem so angry online has shown a couple of really interesting indicators. The first is that there has been a massive jump of misinformation and disinformation being deliberately spread since August last year, which, if you remember correctly, was when we went into lockdown, and Auckland was actually locked down for a lot longer than anybody else. That started a spark that sent out disinformation everywhere and allowed people who have extremely wrong views to get a foothold and spread that misinformation for personal gain, for private gain, or even for nefarious gain in the case of white supremacists pushing for people of colour to not take vaccines and not take steps to look after themselves. And that's really horrifying. But what we're seeing now in an online sphere is that being translated to people who don't quite understand how this fits into their worldview and not being able to handle it. Now, this is called cognitive dissonance, and that's essentially where your brain is trying to work out what to do with the shape of reality as it changes in front of you. And there's a couple of different ways that our brain deals with it. Sometimes it runs away and hides, sometimes it finds a way to justify it, sometimes it will make a plea bargain and go, okay, if I do this, then that will happen. And it's perfectly normal. It happens to all of us. You'll probably all remember something like, finding out the truth about Santa Claus could sometimes be a big issue around cognitive dissonance. And so it's really tricky to try and see how these people are going to pull themselves out of the hole. But what it's done in the meantime is give people carte blanche for being an arsehole online, is what it boils down to. You can present facts, you can present figures, you can present passion or unimpassioned information. People will fight it down because they are misinformed and don't want to face the reality that they're too stupid to realise that they're wrong in many, many cases, which is kind of shocking. So you'll have noticed while I'm doing this video that there's a whole bunch of images popping up with actual screen grabs from actual commentators. And this is something I've seen firsthand. I've had personal threats against me from people who are not happy when I point out facts like white supremacists want people of colour to die, because that's what being a white supremacist is. It's really quite shocking. And so I thought I'd put this together so you could see some examples, but also give you some ideas on how you can actually tackle people in your life who have these particular issues. And I've got to tell you now, your chances of success are not very high here. You see, you can't go into this in attack mode, because as soon as you get confrontational, they pull back and they go into attack mode. Nobody is going to listen to you if you're yelling at them or if they feel attacked. So really the only thing that you can do is to drip feed consistent information in a very patient way that isn't confronting, and that is really tough because you're literally trying to pull somebody out of a rabbit hole that's got stuck down there. The spreading of misinformation and disinformation is a big problem, and it happens for a couple of reasons. The first is that there are people going out of their way to make incredible information look credible. And the second is that we have not given people the tools to be able to disseminate the difference between fact and fiction, and what's a trusted source and what's not a trusted source. And we live in a world where the two blur an awful lot, not just because of things like social media, but because of things like the subjectification and objectification of media being presented to people as exactly the same thing. That's a real concern. So if you want people to be able to see what they're doing is wrong, you need to start presenting information to them that sort of chips away at their worldview without shattering it completely. That gives them the tools to be able to sit there and recognize maybe something's not quite right with what they're being told. And hopefully it sinks in. But psychologists have all said to me, it's not an easy task, and chances are you're not going to succeed. And sometimes it's better to cut your losses. So if you find yourself in that situation and you find that the person that you're dealing with is toxic or dangerous or just not listening, you can cut them out of your life. And while it will be hard, sometimes that's going to be the best thing for you to do. So consider it situation by situation and decide what's best for you. But remember, if you're going to try and help somebody out of this rabbit hole of misinformation, try and calm them down and stop them being so angry, then you really need to make sure that you're aware of the consequences for yourself as well, because that can be emotionally draining and very tolling. That's all for this week. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Do something that makes you happy because it's Easter. Catch you guys later. Ka kite anō.